Today we will be examining a Russian diving watch. Allow me to present the Vostok Amphibian, also known as the Amphibia. I believe the two terms are used interchangeably. Vostok, which means east, was established when one of the watchmaking plants of the first Moscow watch factory was evacuated in 1942 to Chestopol. This is a small town by the Kama River, or on the Kama River, in the Tatarstan Republic of the USSR. During the war, they only manufactured defense equipment, but afterwards they made mechanical wristwatches and clocks. Now the name Vostok, I believe, was adopted, I think, in 1960 or so. And in 1965, they became the official supplier of watches and clocks for the military. Now, the Amphibian was developed in 1967 for the USSR's Navy. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The watch is encased in stainless steel. The bezel, however, I believe is chrome-plated brass. The reason why I say that is that if I look under very high magnification, I'm starting to see some dimpling on the bezel. And the dimpling, they're like little brown spots. You can't see it in this video. Let me see if you can see anything. I don't think you can. So that leads me to believe that it's there's brass underneath this chrome here. But the case should be stainless steel. It's 39.5 millimeters in diameter, exclusive of the crown. The lug widths are 18 and a lug-to-lug distance of 46. Let's take a look at the dial. As with most Russian watches, you're going to have a lot of dial variants. You have lots and lots of dials to choose from. This particular one is one of the more iconic ones. There's a depiction of a scuba diver here. So sometimes this is referred to as the one with the scuba dude. Now you can see the word Vostok over here on the side. Let me just move that hour hand out of the way. Okay. Vostok. The words in Cyrillic, so I guess a V becomes a B, and other letters are translated into R in Cyrillic. So V-O-S-T-O-K, as us Westerners spell it, becomes this B-O-C-T-O-K, I guess. There's another B down here. You can see the writing on the sides of the 6 o'clock mark. That means made in Russia. Dial is matte black. Now there's luminous material on those dots on the minutes track and on the hands, but the lume is quite weak. I don't find it terribly useful. It's very, very weak lume. This is a screw down crown. I'll demonstrate how to operate the watch in a minute. The bezel is bidirectional, friction fit. You don't hear any clicking. Now because it's bidirectional, in my opinion, you can use it both as a countdown timer and an elapsed time timer. So how do you measure elapsed time? It would be the usual way. You will line up the, I guess, this big dot here at 12 on a minute's hand. And wherever the minute's hand lands, that would be how much time has gone by. Now how do you use this as a countdown timer? You will align one of these smaller dots on the minute's hand, next to the minute's hand, with the minute's hand, and by the time the minute's hand gets to the dot, that's how much time you're counting down. So for example, let's say I wanted to count down 20 minutes. So when this gets to the big dots, 20 minutes, each of this spacing here represents 5 minutes. This is a relatively thick lucite crystal, coin edge bezel. As you can see, no crown guards. take a look at some of the writing on the case back. Starting from the top going down, the first word here, it means waterproof, 200 meters. That second line means shockproof. The large engraving here, or the large inscription, means amphibian. And finally, the last row down here means automatic. Now, in order to get access to the case back, you first have to remove this ring here. This is a threaded locking ring. So when you remove this ring that comes out, and the case back is simply lifted out. You have these two tabs here, one here and one here. Here and here. And you can just lift out the case back. Now, generally speaking, as an aside, I don't recommend opening up a case back for any reason at all. I mean, if you want to fiddle around with a relatively expensive watch, do a little regulating, you could give it a shot. But generally speaking, you shouldn't open a case back. You don't know what could potentially happen. Dust could get in there. You might be clumsy and damage something with your fingers or tools or whatever. So I generally don't recommend doing that. I did do some work recently. I tried to tweak the watch a little bit to see if I can get it more accurate. So you can see some scuff marks there. That's another thing that happens if you're not careful. Okay, you can wind up scuffing the watch up. So generally speaking, my advice to you is don't open the case back. Let me show you how to operate the watch. Unscrew the crown. Now if you notice, these crowns are very wobbly. It's actually very frightening the first time you see it. You think it's like a defect, but a lot of Russian watches are made this way. I'm not sure why, but so far, thank God, none of my crowns have fallen off, but they're all kind of wobbly, as you can see. It's not a defect, it's just the way they're designed. Now once it's unscrewed, you can wind the watch. If you pull all the way out, which I just did, here click, you can set the hands. Let me show you again. Okay, this is completely screwed down. Unscrew it. Pull it all the way out to set the hands. As you can see, the watch doesn't hack. Now, how do you set the date? There are two ways. You can keep spinning the hands until you get the date that you want, which is rather tedious. Let me advance this to the 30th. Okay, just flipped over. Now another way to do it is to do this. It's a shortcut. You advance the hands to 1 o'clock. Then you bring it back to 8 o'clock. Like so. And then you bring it past to 12. Watch what happens. Okay? Do that one more time. Let's say we want to bring it to the 1st. Bring it slightly past the 1. Then bring it to 8 o'clock. Then just bring it just past the 12, midnight. Sometimes this doesn't work. It depends on, I guess, what part of the day it is. I guess it depends on whether it's morning or night. So if it doesn't work, just turn the hands over until it flips, and then you can use the shortcut. Okay? Let me see if I can clarify that a little bit. That sounded a little confusing. Sometimes the shortcut won't work if it's, let's say, for example, I just flipped this over here. I'll show you a situation where it doesn't work. Okay, let me bring it to 1. Let me bring it to 8. And let me flip it to 12. See, nothing happens. So it depends on what part of the day-night cycle you're in. So in this case, what I would have to do would just manually turn it until it turns over. The day changes over. Now you can flip the day as much as you want. Hope that wasn't too confusing. Okay? And then when you're done, you could screw it back in. As for the movement, it's an in-house caliber, 2416B, going at 19,800 semi-oscillations per hour. Power reserve on this watch is 33 hours and 57 minutes. Factory specs call for a power reserve of at least 31 hours. Accuracy, factory specs say that tested at 20 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees Celsius, it should be anywhere between daily variation of minus 20 to plus 60. So it's not all that accurate, these watches, so don't expect high accuracy with these watches. After some tweaking, I was able to get the watch to within factory specs. Before it was running very fast. I thought it was running pretty fast. It was running over a minute a day. And little by little I brought it down. Now it's within factory specs, doing anywhere from minus 10, 11, all the way to plus 18, something like that. It changes from day to day. Like I said, these watches are not accurate. There are many stories about people who've been able to tweak it to even plus 3 a day, but I don't have one of those watches, unfortunately. I'd like to take a moment now to just talk a little bit about just to explain the design principle behind the Amphibian's water resistance. In a nutshell, the deeper this watch is submerged, the greater the water resistance. So let's see how this is accomplished. Now, when the water depth is greater, there's more pressure on the watch. Now, as a result, two things happen. The caseback gets pushed up against the gasket, forming a tight seal. The crystal also gets compressed and also forms a tight seal. So that's it. Greater the water depth, the greater the pressure on the watch, and the greater the water resistance. Now, this is very different from a usual dive watch. For example, let's say you take a Rolex sub. Its water resistance to 1,000 feet. Now, it doesn't matter whether I put it in my bathtub or I bring it down to 1,000 feet. It's the same water resistance all the way. So it's a very different design principle. Another thing I'd like to point out is that the gasket, it's not an O-ring. Instead, it's like a flattened ring. Just imagine a donut that you just squished, okay? And it's made of something called sintered rubber. Apparently, sintered rubber, once the gasket gets deformed, it can bounce back more easily to its original shape. So maybe that's why they have to use this kind of rubber. I'm not entirely sure. So when the watch is submerged and the pressure gets higher and higher, the caseback presses against the gasket and it deforms it, right? Then when you start to surface, the gasket should bounce back gradually to its original shape. So I guess the designers found that sintered rubber, that's S-I-N-T-E-R-E-D, is the best type of rubber to use to have this this rebound performance, this correct rebound performance, the ability to go back to its original shape. Now, I think this is a fun watch to have. It's a very inexpensive watch with a very interesting history. Got lots of dial variations. And this was a sub $100 watch. I mean, actually, to be now if I recall, it's actually sub $50. I think it cost me like $47. This originally came on a bracelet, but it was pretty awful, to put it mildly. A lot of these Russian watches, the bracelets and straps have much to be desired. Luckily, it's an 18mm lug width, so there are many things that'll work. You can use a G10 strap, leather strap, a Zulu. Many things will work out well and look good as well. This is sort of like my beater watch. The only thing I don't like about it is its accuracy or lack thereof. But that's pretty much what you would expect for a watch, you know, that's like under $50. I mean, if you wanted a watch under $50 that was considerably more accurate and easy to adjust, you'd probably do better with a Seiko 5. But I like this watch because of its history and its, you know, very nice vintage look. It's very comfortable to wear. And I do get comments about it. People look at it and say, oh, it's a very nice watch. You know, they find it very interesting. It's colorful, and you have lots of dial variants. All right, let me see if I left anything out. If not, it's time for me to sign off. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Noise you hear in the background of my crib notes. Yeah, so we're good. Okay, Vostok Amphibian. You can get them on eBay. There's specialty websites that sell them. You know, websites specializing in, you know, Russian watches and other Russian goods. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Once again, if there were any inaccuracies in this review, please let me know. Okay? Look forward to hearing from you. Have a good one, and thank you once again for tuning in. Your viewership is greatly, greatly appreciated. Tell all your friends about me. Okay? Bye now.